fool! I've been trained in your Jedi arts by Count Dooku!
What was the real reason that the leader of the Separatist movement, Count Dooku, hated the lightsaber form that he taught the leader of the droid army, General Grievous?
You disappoint me.
Why did he even teach Grievous to fight this way if he hated the lightsaber form so much?
Jedi scum!
On that point, why did Dooku teach all his acolytes, Ventress, Savage, and Grievous, to use lightsabers in a way that he disrespected so much?
You have a job to do, Anakin. Try not to upset him.
Today we are talking about General Grievous' lightsaber style and why Dooku held it in such disdain.
Brave, but foolish.
Grievous was a feared warlord and warrior from the planet Kali, having learned battle tactics and warfare during the war between the Kaleesh and the neighboring tribes on that planet. In this war, Grievous would begin to prove himself as a great tactician and a feared warrior.
Wars not make one great!
However, one of the tribes, the Yamri, were actually supported and backed by the Galactic Republic. During this conflict, Grievous became known for his tactical prowess along with his hatred for the Republic, believing that they had no business interfering in this conflict. While the exact details are unknown in canon, at some point Grievous became the subject of technological improvements, with everything but his internal organs being eventually replaced by top-tier CIS technology. Dooku provided these improvements to Grievous, offering him a position as leader of the droid army in return. In addition to this, Dooku agreed to train Grievous in the art of saber combat, making him a yet more deadly foe for the Republic and the Jedi. As we discussed in previous videos, Count Dooku was a master swordsman, incorporating a seldom used lightsaber style known as Makashi, or more simply known as Form 2. For those who don't know, Makashi was a single-handed lightsaber form that focused on parries and disarming blows rather than fatal wounds and over-the-head strikes. Behind the scenes, Form 2 draws much inspiration from the real-world fencing rather than kendo, which is the case for most other lightsaber styles. Form 2 was regarded as the pinnacle of grace and elegance in saber combat and was widely considered to be the ultimate saber-to-saber combat form. Makashi, however, was not as well-rounded as the other 5 forms taught in the Jedi Temple, being designed exclusively to combat other lightsabers and not blasters. Added to this, the form was incredibly demanding, requiring years of practice and refinement before the form could be considered competitive. Many Jedi considered the practice and effort required by the form to be better spent elsewhere, focusing on the forms that would be useful against a wider array of enemies rather than limiting themselves to lightsaber duels. Paired with his curved hilt, Dooku's lightsaber techniques were painstakingly catered to deal with opponents wielding other lightsabers, making him arguably the best duelist alive during the era of the Clone Wars. However, despite the fact that Dooku did teach Grievous to use a single hand for each lightsaber, it would be incorrect to assume that he was using Form 2 to the degree that Dooku did. Form 2 favored precise and clean movements which consumed less energy than the strong, overpowering blows, dedicated to finding the most efficient line of contact and redirecting your opponent's energy rather than meeting it head-on. Grievous, on the other hand, was over-reliant on his mechanical strength, paying less attention to the placement of the blades and placing more emphasis on the force behind his attacks. Even though he did incorporate some elements of Form 2, such as jabs and the single-handed grip, Grievous' own combat was far too forceful and inelegant to be satisfactory to Dooku.
There is concern you have lost your focus.
Dooku held the title of Master Duelist with great pride, having been recognized as a proficient swordsman as early as the age of 10, and standing toe-to-toe with a Jedi Master in a duel as young as 14. Everything from his one-handed form to his curved hilt was designed to be a demonstration of discipline, elegance, and skill. Dooku lived out the idea that proficiency in combat required intense training and discipline, and he prided himself on being more skilled with one hand than most Jedi were with 2. Dooku trained a total of 5 students in the art of saber combat, 3 of whom were after he left the Jedi Order. But this begs the question, why did everyone he trained after leaving the Order make use of multiple lightsaber blades? As a Jedi, Dooku had no respect for other Jedi who used multiple blades. Whether they were dual-wielding or using a double-bladed lightsaber, Dooku saw this as an unrefined attempt to brute force a win, and Dooku could often and easily exploit this to achieve a disarming blow. So why did he train Qui-Gon Jinn and his other Jedi Padawan to use a single lightsaber, while training Ventress and Grievous to hold a lightsaber in every hand and Savage Opress to use a double-bladed lightsaber? Well, the answer goes back to two specific moments in history, specifically two battles. First, the Battle of Naboo, and the First Battle of Geonosis. First, let's talk about the Battle of Geonosis. This duel was Dooku's first duel as a Sith with a Jedi. Going through the battle, we can see that Dooku disarmed Anakin fairly quickly through the use of Force Lightning, freeing himself to focus solely on Obi-Wan Kenobi. While Obi-Wan certainly held his own, Dooku had Obi-Wan on the back foot for pretty much the entire duel, easily achieving the disarming strike he was aiming for and sending Obi-Wan crumbling to the ground. It wasn't until Anakin entered the duel taking Obi-Wan's lightsaber in his offhand that Dooku went on the defensive. Despite being so dedicated and practiced in the art of saber-to-saber combat, Dooku was put on the defensive by a brash Padawan using two sabers. I believe that this was a turning point for Dooku, where he realized that the only way another could match him in single combat was by resorting to cheap and unrefined tactics. When Dooku went to train Grievous and Ventress, he knew that it would be impossible to elevate them to the level of skill that he had achieved over the course of several decades of relentless training and refinement. Not only did Dooku give each of his dark side disciples as many blades as they had hands, but with Grievous he even allowed his cybernetic limbs to double the number of arms and therefore blades he sported, and to have wrists that spun on their axles like helicopters. Not only is this extremely unsportsmanlike, but it totally undermines the idea of skill in combat by simply overpowering an opponent without the need of precision or tact. On that topic, it may be a good idea to talk about whether Vader felt the same way about his Inquisitors. While he certainly didn't idealize swordsmanship the same way Dooku did, it may be an interesting topic. I don't know, maybe we'll cover it in a future video. So, not only was Grievous quad-wielding lightsabers, already 3 more than Dooku thought to be respectable, but he also had his body modified them to use them in further unsporting ways. Despite the fact that Dooku did not discourage this, but actually enabled it, the Count did in fact have no respect for this. As someone who dedicated most of his life to perfecting the art of the duel, Dooku had an extremely high standard and came to realize that none of his pupils would ever live up to this standard. The belief was compounded by the Battle of Naboo, where his apprentice Qui-Gon Jinn was killed by a Sith with a double-bladed lightsaber. Dooku had trained Qui-Gon in the ways of the Force and lightsaber combat, and even though Jinn didn't use Form 2, Dooku still respected Qui-Gon for being able to deftly handle a single-bladed lightsaber. However, despite all the time and effort Dooku put into Qui-Gon, he still fell to a double-bladed lightsaber, the great insult to Dooku's teaching and mentorship. This challenged Dooku's worldview. Even though he still felt that it was unsporting to use more than one blade, he saw this as a way for less skilled duelists to compensate against a more practiced swordsman. I believe the death of Qui-Gon further influenced Dooku's acceptance of the multiple-bladed approach, as he realized that very few were as skilled as he was, and not able to properly combat multiple blades while only carrying one. Because of this, Dooku did not place the same faith in his dark side students as he had in his Jedi Padawans, instead deciding to give them cheap advantages to embody their inadequacies. Now, ultimately, I don't think Dooku was right, at least not completely. Characters like Maul and Ventress had considerable skill with the lightsaber, and manipulating multiple blades efficiently was not necessarily as straightforward of an advantage as some might think. Still, the point stands that Dooku believed that this was unsporting, and that it was a better demonstration of your skill to best your opponent with only a single blade. In short, Dooku taught his acolytes to use as many blades as they had hands because he did not have faith that they could achieve the level of skill and precision that he had, and allowed them to use brute force methods to compensate for their lack of skill. In the end, he believed that his skills were so far beyond what could be achieved by others without decades of practice that he gave his students the ultimate insult, allowing them to use multiple blades so they could stand a chance.
As you see, my Jedi powers are far beyond yours.
But let me know what you guys think. Do you, like Dooku, believe that it's cheap to use multiple blades in combat? And do you agree with our reasoning for why Dooku would teach all 3 of his dark side students to use a combat style that he openly hated? Let us know what you think down in the comments below, because I want to know what you, my friends, have to say about our favorite galaxy far, far away. Be sure to like the video if you found it informative, or if you did not think the video was thought-provoking in any way, you can leave a thumbs down completely guilt-free, because that means I'm not doing my job. And please subscribe to stay up to date with everything Star Wars related. Thank you all so much for watching, and as always, may the lore be with you, now and forever.